Galionites here and around the internet. Appreciate you tuning in. My apologies for being unable to be here a couple of weeks ago prior to our council meeting, and our efforts to kind of make up last week fell through. All of that really on my part. So again, my apologies. Good to be back. Tomorrow will be a real important meeting night for City Council for the future of city government, and I think in some respects the future of planning and executing on some improvements that I think Galion is in line to accomplish over the next couple of years. One of those improvements that's going from the planning and to the executing, at least the finishing of an important first of three phases, is the Big Four Depot on Washington Street and Harding Way. We're in the process of getting a contractor mobilized. We've bidded out and met with the contractor for the replacement of windows throughout the depot itself, as well as a roof patching. Now, a handful of years ago, a roof job was tackled, but some of the areas are in disrepair and really leading to the interior deterioration. So we're going to get those projects accomplished. Certainly, with the time of the year, we'll kind of wait to see how much roof work can be done yet this year, but pretty confident, and so is the contractor, confident that they can make progress on the windows over the winter and finish up the project in the spring. So that's a major step forward, and really, as I said a minute ago, a three-phase effort to bring this depot into productive reuse. I'm really of the opinion, and I think the people who have been working on the depot from the Galion Depot Inc. perspective believe that as the building is repaired, the opportunities for the likelihood for investors and tenants will increase. It's quite risky. I think everyone would agree, as you would look at that building in the current condition that it's in, to make a major investment. So working with council in this budget to increase a little bit of the funding that we can use over the next year as part of a multi-year investment in getting the building up to shape and back into some useful, some productive use rather. So that project will be getting ready and starting up here over the winter months. And with the spring completion, I think that's a real positive step forward. Another project that's come together just over the last few days is it looks like we've found a vendor that can deliver a bathroom to us that will also have some storage space for some of the extra tables and utility items that we have up at the depot pavilion. So I really expect that project to be really constructed off-site this winter and delivered in the spring and in service as we begin our 2019 rental season. And really that facility has been used quite a bit, and we've had to bump along with porta pots. So looking forward to having that completed in a certain sense. At the same time, we'll really get a major step forward in the roof and window repair next door at the depot itself. So that's it's a big project that will start over the next few weeks, and a commitment to the building that is within this budget for 2019, which will have its final reading tomorrow night at Council's second to last meeting of the year. So I wanted to mention that. I think that over the next 2 or 3 years we can really tackle the renovation of the depot and have another asset to promote travel and tourism and link up with the other attractions that we have in the community. So that's a big project that's going on. We also believe that next year, as I've mentioned a few other times, that although the main widening of 598 won't take place until 2021 or into 22 perhaps, we're remain optimistic that we'll get the authorization to install a traffic signal at Brant Road and 598 that will kind of be on the the north end of that widening project, and are convinced that that if that is warranted, as they say in the traffic signal business, that we certainly have money in the 2019 budget to go ahead and get that constructed yet this year. So those are two big capital projects. Some of the other projects that are going on are really subsurface projects that are important to the neighborhoods they affect, but by and large don't draw as much attention as a depot renovation or the eventual installation of a traffic signal at a very busy and sometimes harrowing intersection. So those projects are moving ahead. Again, like I say, with a storm sewer project over in the southeast end of town, and in a few weeks we'll be letting a project which will extend sewer service down Charles Street and begin to bring into our sewer system some of the residents and businesses that are in the city but are either served by septic tanks or by private sewers. So that Charles Street project we may talk about in the future as we try to come up with some funding to assist those residents that have difficulty connecting into the sewer from a cost point of view. So more on that in the weeks to come. Stop at that point, see what we have in terms of a question or two, and try to see what's on your mind tonight.
All right, Mayor. First question tonight comes from Sheila. She asks, is there any more thought about a grocery store coming to town?
Yeah, I think that is always on our mind, and the project moves forward. The last I spoke with the owner of the shopping center happened to be last week, in conjunction with some other investments that they're interested in Galion, and it looks like the solution to getting a grocery in here is to identify another major supplier that isn't putting the requirements on the new operator that the previous supplier had put on that new operator, and in some ways weighted down the deal and made it impractical, a little bit too risky. So I think it's moving along slowly, and without being corny, we think about it nearly every day. I think most everyone in the community has heard the story or the rumor, if you will, about a possible expansion and modernization of the Save-A-Lot store. But I've got nothing tonight that would confirm that, and we certainly would think that would be another big improvement if that grocery operator expanded their line and modernized their store and expanded or continued their commitment to Galion.
Okay, those are all the questions we have for right now.
I would say just a couple of things without alarming anyone. It looked several weeks ago that the way the city water fund was shaping up, that we may be moving towards having to increase water rates in 2019. A couple of fundamental things happened, and both of those good for ratepayers. And so I'm much more optimistic that water rates, and although the administration does not set the sewer rates, I'd also venture to guess that City Council would not need to increase sewer rates next year. So we should have stability in those two areas, and we're hoping for lower benefit costs this year, and so that's one of the primary reasons. We've also had lower spending this year in some areas in the water fund, and so it looks as though the balance between moving ahead with a rate increase in water and this upcoming year has really moved back to, it looks like we'll stay with those rates this year.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Another question did pop up. This one comes from Sean. He says, I see the property behind Burger King sold. Is there any development of that property in the works?
Yes, I mentioned that the Galion West Shopping Center's owner, in conjunction with some of the purchasers of the land, are really looking at pretty pretty seriously and I'd say aggressively in a good way about developing some housing. I think what you'll see over the next year or two is the 2 homes that have been committed to be built really on Heisey Park Lane, just north of the old Geyers property. Those houses will go ahead, and from my discussion with the new property owner, there are a couple of more lots that she's interested in selling, will be selling. So I can see quite possibly a handful of new homes going there. And then the tricky issue will be what to do with the balance of that property. How much of that property would be more appropriately developed into a small 10 or 12 unit single family home project, or some apartment or condo projects. And then also I still believe, as I have for a long time, that there's some commercial development potential out there, really to the south end of the property, kind of behind the Burger King and Prince and Paints area in there. Those few acres in there, I think, lend themselves to commercial development. I'm hopeful that the rest of the area will develop over the next year or two, and one of our greatest economic and community development needs, and that's more housing.
Okay, no further questions right now.
Well, about all I can say before I sign off is that we're going to, as I said before, tackle the budget. I believe that we'll see some major improvements. Every time I drive out 598, going towards 30 in that Portland Way North corridor, I begin to envision that piece of highway expanded to 3 lanes with curb and really very much looks like a community and a strip of property that's ready for future development. So I'm excited about getting that project designed, getting it to market, and getting that tackled. So if there isn't anything else, about the only thing that I would say is that any surpluses that may pop up here in the last few weeks as we cash out, or finish out rather, 218 and into 219, I'm going to encourage council to put those dollars towards the retirement of debt on things like our fire truck and some of the previous improvements that we've made out on Portland Way. So I think it's really good policy, and is wise to get rid of some of that debt as we move forward, rather than, if you will, sitting on some of the cash balances that we have. So we'll see how that goes, and if there aren't any other questions, we'll sign off. Once again, it's going to be important that the budget passes tomorrow night. We will need 5 votes for the what's called an emergency clause to go into effect, and if it doesn't, then we'll be scrambling to get people paid before the ordinance would go into effect 30 days from tomorrow night. So it might be interesting times at City Hall, but I really believe we've spent extra time with council. We meaning the administration, both the mayor's office and the auditor's office, have spent extra time talking with council members, and my hope is that we'll have a unanimous vote tomorrow night in support of next year's budget. But if not, that we'll be able to get the 5 votes necessary and finish up 18 and start 19 on a positive first step. So good night from City Hall. Thanks for watching, and come on up to the meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Good night.